Hey, what's going on, guys? So today I'm finally doing a full review on this case Kinzua. This is a knife that I got in trade. I was super excited about it because this is kind of, when Case broke out of their, we only make traditional knives phase, which is basically most of the the company's history, right? They make fantastic, very well known, some of the most collected knives on the planet, slip joints. That's kind of what they're known for, right? They're traditional knives. And then they went, you know what? Someone over in marketing said, hey, we got to do something like, that everyone else is into. We got to make one of those frame lock things, because Case will always have its kind of core fans and collectors. I don't think that that's something that's going to die off. I do think that the interest is definitely different in the 70s and 80s and 90s and 2000s. I mean, as time goes on, every decade that passes, there's less and less people who are really into collecting slip joints and know all about WR Case & Sons. But I don't think they're going to die anytime soon. I think that legacy is being passed on, and there's plenty of newer collectors that, do enjoy their cutlery. But I totally see how they needed to get into the new market, right? It just makes sense. So I was very excited in general to see like a modern folder from Case. I've been a fan my whole life. I still am a huge fan. I still love their trappers. I do actively try to collect their trappers. Maybe I'll do a video on that in the future. That's a cool little throwback, because I haven't shown any like traditional knives in a long time. But anyway, so I got this knife in trade, and there was blade play. If you haven't seen my previous videos on it, and I was super bummed. So I sent it back to Case, and they fixed it up for me free of charge, sent it back, and here we are. So I've carried this on and off for weeks now, and overall, I want to love this knife. I really do. But, and I don't know if it's just me with this one. I mean, there's one issue I do have with it that I think would be across the board with all of them, but I want to say I like it. I don't love it. And the reason I don't love it is just because it's kind of a pain to use. So first off, here's our box, right? We got a nice box. We got our sticker, what it is, red anodized aluminum Kinzua, S35VN, Tanto. By the way, here's the manufacturer, December 2nd, 21. There are a bunch of different colors on this guy. There's actually even one with like a skull pattern. They have one with a snake pattern, and I want to say a camo pattern. Then they have just like straight up, green, black. This red one, they have Tanto, or they have like, drop point design. So if you're not into the Tanto thing, then, they have other ones. So there's a bunch of versions of this knife. They all have the aluminum handles. It does have a thicker blade here. This is 0.15 inches thick, all right, which I actually do like. It's something a little bit different. That kind of thicker blade on a folder is kind of nice. Anyway, some quick specs since we're talking about it. 3.4 inches. Again, CPM S35VN. Top-notch steel. I mean, this thing does cut. It cuts very well. It's kind of its saving grace, because at the end of the day, why do we have a pocket knife? We want to cut stuff with it, right? Well, it does cut and perform very nicely. I can't complain about that. Anyway, closed here is 4.75 inches, and that makes this 8.15 overall. It is 3.4 ounces. I feel like it is just an average, medium, folder. I don't feel like it's heavy. I don't feel like it's light. It's not big, it's not small, it's just kind of right in the middle. One thing I can say for sure though, it's overall very smooth. These smooth aluminum handles, there's no texturing anywhere on them. The only texturing you really get on this guy is the jimping on the back of the blade. I do think that there's a nice long run of it, and it's very comfortable. I like it a lot. And since I sent it into Case, they did fix the blade plate. There's no blade plate anymore. But the two issues I have with this guy, number one is when I close it, all right, when you just like, let me step back for a second so I can explain this as best as possible. Right, there is a detent, and there's a little bearing there, so that when you close a knife, it rides, on the side of the knife. You can't see it, it's in the pivot area, but as it's riding on there, when the blade's shut, right, the little ball bearing drops into the detent, all right, so it keeps the blade shut. Very simple. It also creates the pressure that's needed. So there's a flipper. So as I'm pushing on the flipper, pushing, when it finally releases that pressure and pops out of the detent, that's when you have all the pressure to swing it open. And it shoots open nice and fine. No issues with that at all. All right, locks up. Again, since it's been fixed, perfect. No issues with that. But I think the bearing's just a little bit big, because when I go to unlock this, all right, so I push my frame lock over, And as I'm closing, I'm releasing pressure. I'm not constantly pushing as hard as I can, just like with any knife. I'm just kind of pushing it over, but it stops. And what's happening is the little tiny bearing that's pushed into the blade here is hitting the lock bar. And it's not the end of the world, but my problem is that naturally I go to close it and it hits it. So what do I want to do? I want to create more force, but I can't, because once it finally pops free, it's going to close on my thumb. All right, and that's going to be a nasty, nasty cut. So what I have to do is either move my fingers out of the way to create more pressure to close it like that, or what I have been doing is just pushing this bar further over. Now the problem is pushing it further over, I want to push it down here, but what happens? That flipper tab, all right, hits my thumb, so I can't. I have to push it over here. And the further you are away, the more pressure it takes to push that scale over enough to clear the detent. Or not the detent, but the bearing. So, in essence, it's just a pain to close. It's easy to open. Well, I shouldn't say that. Sometimes it sticks a little bit, and it actually is uncomfortable to push on that flipper. I have to really use a lot of pressure. In this case, it happens to be cooperating with me. You know, on average, when I take it out to use it, it's totally fine. I can just hit it in the right angle and get that to pop out. But even if you notice, when I'm closing this, I'm not closing it quickly. I'm very, very focused on closing it because I don't want to cut myself. So it pops out, great. You go to cut things, everything's cool until it comes time to close this guy, and then it's kind of a chore. Now, if you do two hands, it's not a problem. Not a problem at all, because what ends up happening is you just push that barely over, but you have control with the other hand. So with the control, you can push, you know, past that stopping point, that natural stopping point. All right, see right there, it doesn't want to go down. It's because it has to overcome that little spot right there. So it's kind of a bummer, because if that wasn't an issue, I'd have a lot of praise with this knife. I'm not a huge fan of the little stubby pocket clip, especially because it ends right before the cutout for the frame lock. It does carry okay, you know, maybe once or twice in carrying this. I fumbled to put it back properly because I just wanted, my pants wanted to just catch this little lip here. Again, not the end of the world. It's not, you know, the smoothest transition pocket clip. Visually, I don't like it. I don't like the big hole, you know, so you can access those screws. I don't like that it's a little stubby. I don't know what they could have done better, though. You know what I mean? Because of the design here. Maybe if you did a longer one and where the pocket clip makes contact with the actual frame, it might have been better if it was all the way over here, you know, past that. I don't know. It's kind of ugly. It looks like it's slapped on. It doesn't look like it was designed very well. Overall, I do like the design of the knife. It's just the pocket clip seems almost like an afterthought to me. I like that the logo's on there. That's kind of nice, but I don't know. I think it takes away from the knife a little bit. But yeah, I mean, you know, once it's open and you're using the knife, it's totally fine. I got just the tiniest bit of hot spot because that thing is really sticking out there. That deep conceal clip, it really kind of wraps around. So I had a little bit of pressure in the palm, but only when I'm like really digging down and like cutting that extra thick cardboard. If I'm doing something for a duration of time, I tend to get more of a grip. Like when I go to cut something, let's say I'm just cutting some cardboard, I just have a relaxed grip. I just cutting. But as fatigue sets in, as your hand starts getting tired, you know, and when you're gripping things, I tend to grip harder the longer I'm cutting something. So if I'm cutting something for literally 10, 20 seconds, it's not a big deal. But if I'm cutting something for a couple minutes, specifically testing an edge or trying to see, you know, how long it takes for that steel to kind of dull out a little bit, that's when I find myself like really bearing down on my knives and cutting hard and gripping hard. And that's when I can really tell if something's going to give me a hot spot. So this one, it's a light hot spot, you know, it's warm, let's say. I wouldn't even call it a hot spot. It's a warm spot if you're using your knife pretty hard. So yeah, I mean, those are my issues with this one. For me, I mean, it's American made. That I love that. American made. It's almost like blinders, because when I hear, yeah, made in America, made in USA, it makes me feel good because I'm an American and I feel like I'm a patriot and I love my country and I love supporting my countrymen, right? Now, of course, in this case, I traded for it. I didn't buy it, but when I buy something and I hear that all American made thing, it's cool because it keeps the money in my own economy. I think it's kind of nice. All right, it's a bonus. But because it means so much to me, it allows me to overlook other little things. Like if this was Chinese made or Taiwanese made or German made or Italian made or, you know, made in France, it doesn't really matter. Anywhere other than America, then I go, oh yeah, no, I don't like that. But it's like I'm trying to defend the American companies. I'm trying to defend Case because I'm like, you know, America, you know what I'm saying? So there's something like deep rooted in me that wants to overlook the thing, but I can't, you know, these are issues. So overall, I will say that it performs very nice. It carries okay. It's comfortable to use. I have no problem once it's actually open and I'm cutting things. I mean, that CPM S35VN is just top notch. It is one of the best steels that are out there. I know there's a million now and all the super steels and stuff. I know, you know, it's not the new kid on the block anymore, but man, does it perform. It is a fantastic steel. And like I said, I mean, I think I prefer the drop point blades over the Tanto ones. And it's a good looking blade. I like it overall, but I can't recommend it personally from my experience with this one. And it's not just like mine had, you know, blade play, which I thought was unacceptable. Case fixed it, that's great. And I've talked to other people who've had these who don't have a blade play. So it doesn't seem like that's a consistent issue or problem, but you could tell me if you have one of these, let me know, you know, when you close it, do you have to like really focus on what you're doing? Do you have to make sure that you push this this lock bar over enough, you know, or do you have the stopping point that I have? I mean, that just, it becomes an issue. It's such a small little thing, but when I'm dealing with dozens and dozens and dozens of knives every month. And when I have really, really nice knives in my hand, whether they're cheap or expensive, doesn't matter. Knives that just are comfortable and work well. Something like this really stands out. It becomes, you know, like a sore point because when I grab this one, you know, because I rotate through different knives. It's not like when I carry this for 3 or 4 weeks, it's not every single day. It might be for 2 days straight, and then I carry something else, and I go back to it, and I go back to it, and, you know, I go back and forth. So, like, I carry a knife for 1 day, and everything's fine. I purposely take it out, play with it. You know, if I have to cut something, that's great. I get the real-world experience. But then when I keep going back to this particular knife, I go, oh, yeah. And it's kind of like a bummer. You know what I mean? So there's a little negativity that's kind of surrounding this particular knife. And so overall, I really like the knife, but I don't love it. And if someone's like, hey, should I get a case Kinzua? I'd probably just say no. You know, it's unfortunate. I mean, if I got another one in my hands to see if it's consistent with the closing issue, maybe. I mean, if you took the pocket clip off and you just had it, you know, free floating in the pocket, or if you had like a knife slip or something like that, you know, maybe it'll be a little better. But it's just, I was so extra excited. I was excited because that case name, that modern design, that CPM S35VN, which is the only thing that didn't let me down here. The all-American thing, I mean, I was stoked. But again, you know, blade play out of the box, that was kind of disappointing. And then even when I got it back to find out that, you know, the closing is still going to be an issue, it took a hit for me. There was some bonus points that were just completely taken away. And it's not an exciting knife to me anymore. You know, it's still a good knife. It's a good quality knife, I think. But there is so much damn competition out there from even other American companies in the same price range. This is a $134 knife, all right? Again, there's different variants. So $134 is like on the low end. If you get one of those pattern ones, I think they're more like $150, $160. And I think it's, you know, that it's priced okay for what it is. But, you know, even today, I would think anything over $100 shouldn't be annoying to use. And that's ultimately what happened to me with this knife, is it became annoying, which is unfortunate. It really is. So anyway, those are my thoughts on it. If you have one, please share your experiences down below. Do you love it? Do you not have an issue? Do you find yourself closing it a little slower because of, you know, things that I mentioned? Do you have a problem flipping it open? Like I said, when I first got it, sometimes it sticks, man. I don't know if it's like the angle that I'm pushing on the flipper, but sometimes like, oh, I really can't get it to open. And then other times it feels like effortless. I mean, right now it's not a big deal at all. See, I have to, I'm like hesitant with my thumb there. Yeah, right now it just seems to be opening fine, but sometimes I, like literally when I was carrying it, took it out of the pocket, went to open it. There's one particular time that no matter what I did, I don't know what was going on. I was pushing at the wrong angle or whatever, but my finger was sore. I like couldn't open it. I had to literally go like this and just kind of use my other hand to pinch that open and get it started. It was crazy. But anyway, that's all. I like it. I definitely don't love it. I probably wouldn't recommend it to someone. Just because, again, there's just so many amazing knives out there. So I do owe it to myself to try another case model, maybe like something else modern that they're coming up with in the future. I like to revisit case, in other words. I'm not going to, throw them under the bus here and just write them off that they can't make a modern knife, because I'm sure there's plenty out there that people love. And again, even watching this video, you might be like, hey, I don't know what you're talking about. I love mine. It's perfectly fine. And that's cool, but I can only go by my own experience, and that's what I'm doing here is I'm sharing my experience, and my experience was annoying. That's pretty much it. So that's all. Hope you guys have a wonderful day. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you tomorrow with a brand new video. Take care.